Okay, Bruchim Abayim, dear Mishtatfim of our very special Chabura Kol HaTorah Kula Live. Thank you so very much for being with us, and I want to take a moment to thank our hosts. Today, I am giving this year from within Talmud with the Talmudim of Kita Daled Cheder Menachem, and we're in the middle of a fascinating campaign where we're going to, Be'ezus Hashem, expand our ability to teach these Torah Kinlach. So whoever has not given yet, now's your chance, and whoever did, you can chaperine and broaden your partnership with us. Now's the time. It's going to be in the description, also shared on the group. And we are jumping straight into Perek Gimel of Hilchas Tefillin Mezuzos, where the Rambam is going to describe how to actually prepare the bayis itself, the ktsitzah as the Rambam calls it, and the different parts of the tefillin box. And it's going to be very hands-on, very descriptive. Be with us. Sagt the Rambam, halacha aleph. Shmoin halachas yes from Ma'aseh Tefillin. There are 8 halacha l'Moshe Sinai left that we did not describe yet. We only described 2. There are 8 in how the tefillin are actually prepared. Kulon halacha l'Moshe Sinai. They are all halachas which have been transmitted to us orally, all the way dating back to Har Sinai. And for this reason, kulon me'akvos. Each one of them, if there's any of them missing, they're not hidurei mitzvah. The tefillin is invalid. The mishina b'achas mem, not only if one is missing, if you changed any of them, possible you have actively invalidated the tefillin. Ve'elohein, they are the following. Shiyum merubois. First of all, the box of tefillin has to be square. V'chein tfirason beribua. So I'm going to show you. And here we have a tefillin shel roish. First of all, the first halacha we said this has to be square. Okay, that means the length and the width of the box itself has to be exact, the same size, and tfirason, the way they're sewn, and the Ram is going to go into describing the square on the bottom. This square also has to be square. Valachsoinon beribua. This has to be so square, not just the general square shape, but it has to be the diagonal parameters are the same. They have 4 exact corners. It has to be square and sharp the corners. In the hide from which the tefillin shorosh is made, there has to be tzura shin miyamin umismoil. From the right side and the left side, there has to be embossed a shin. And v'shiyikroich. These are all halachas. And when you put the parshas, as we said, in each one of these 4 compartments, there are there's parshiyos. After you roll them up, you have to put them in. The Rambam says matlas. Matlas is like a piece of cloth. The Metzius is that we do it with a different piece of cloth. I brought one to demonstrate. Let's see where it is. It's not here. It's not here. And you wrap it in, and then and after you wrap the parsha into this wrapping, or this the way the Rambam describes a piece of cloth, you close that cloth with seir, with hair of the animal's tail. After which you put them into their compartment. And when you're going to close the box, right? This closing of the box, this closing of the box, when you're sewing them, we'll sort of talk about how exactly to sew them. They have to be sewn with gidin, with sinews of the behemoth that are dried and softened, so they can sew. Now, another thing is, till now the Rambam was just talking about the box itself, that this has to be square. He's now saying you also have to have a ma'aboiris. Ma'aboiris, we're going to call it the tunnel. You have to make from the box itself a place for a ritzu to go in. So now this looks like a tunnel. Okay, you have to make it from the box itself, and it's called a ma'aboiris. Until the ritzu is able to go to and fro within from the back of the bayis. Another halacha l'Moshe Sinai is that the ritzus have to be black, and that's even more important than the bayis itself, interestingly enough. And the kesher, the knot with which we're going to do connected to our head, has to be the shape of a dalid, as which you can, which is a kesher yadua. We know that there's different ifanim to do it. The kesher of, it's a kitzuras dalid. Now, Keitzad oisin tefillin shel rosh. How do they make the tefillin shel rosh themselves? So the Rambam. Loichin eitz meruba. You take a square box, and he says a new halacha. He says the best way is arkoi kirachboy. The height is just like the width. So the halacha Moshe Messina was just that this part should be square. The height should be the same arkoi kirachboy. That is a hidur. Okay, gavoy. Arkoi kirachboy ki gavoy. The arkoi, the length and the width should be the same height as the gavoy. If it's taller or shorter than this square, that's also not a problem. The only part that's halachah Moshe Messina is that the square should be exact. The arkoi kirachboy, but the gavoy doesn't must. It's l'chatchila. When you have this box, you put in 3 grooves. Okay, on our film we just see it as a mark. But you should know before they actually color the bias black, they actually have to make sure there's 4 different compartments by making 3 separate grooves. And as we'll soon see, it has to go all the way down. This groove has to go all the way down to this box itself, to the bottom. And therefore, it's the test of the chut. The Rambam is going to bring that you have to put a chut, you have to take a string and pull it all the way down to see that it separates till the bottom of the bias. So there are 4 completely different compartments. If you make 3 grooves, so then it's 4 different compartments. So the Rambam is first describing you do this out of wood. Once you did it out of wood, then you take cloth, you make it wet, so it could shape and mold itself over this wooden tavla, this wooden mint. And you put inside this, you code this wooden box with the grooves with this wet cloth. You push this oil, this hide that you're coating it with in each chritz, and they press it onto the wooden box very strong, so the wetness goes out of the middles, and then they press it from the sides. They make a shin on both sides, as we said. Now, interesting, on the smoil of the miniach, that means, let's say I'm wearing this tefillin. On my left side, the tefillin is going to have 4 heads to the shin, and Yemina Miniach is going to have 3. Now, halacha gemol manichin is oir al eichivish. Then you take this hide onto the wood, and you leave it on it till it dries, so it's going to be strong. So also after you take it off the wooden mold, it's going to still maintain its square shape, because we said halacha Moshe Messina, it has to be square when you wear it. After which, when it's dry, you take it off the wooden mold, and you find that the hide, when you take it off, you'll find that there are 4 compartments. You put in a parsha into each one of the 4 compartments. And after you finish putting them in, you take a little bit left of the hide and machzirin, you bring it back to close the box. And and when you're closing it, you leave a place in the back where the Ritzua can go in. As we described, the Ketzah, this is all Tefilin Shel Rosh. Now, Tefilin Shel Rosh is much more complex because it has 4 boxes. Masha'enke and Tefilin Shel Yad, Zok the Rambam, is much simpler, obviously, because it just has to have 1 hollow box inside. So the Ketzah is in Tefilin Shel Yad, Loichin Eitz Meruba, you take also a square mold, Arka Karachbay. The length and the width is the same. It's also exactly square. And the Yagavoy Ke'etzba, here it could just be the height of an etzba, which the Rambam described as a gudol. You don't need it to be bigger. And because it doesn't need 4 compartments. A yasel zamat, a pachas mat, doesn't matter. Or mechaper when you take this square box and again you cover it over with a hide that's wet. You leave this hide on this mold until it's completely dry. After which you take off the hide. And in this case, it's much simpler because in Tefilin Shel Yad, it's all the 4 parashas that are wrapped together. You put it straight into that one compartment. And there you have it. And then once you took out the mold, so then there's left a hollow spot. So the place where the wood was, you put in the parasha and the parashas, and then you umachzir and mixas. Sorry, yeah, umachzir mixas armel mata, and again you close, you bring back the rest of the hide to the bottom, and stuff happening. You bring let's close it. You bring back the bottom to close it, and again you leave a place. And you have to square it. You have to sew it closed from the 4 corners. And if you notice, when you look at these Perek tefillin, you'll see that it's be'etzem a square. After the square, they leave a ma'abarta, and it's very clearly, distinctly noticeable. You see that it goes in. So this square alone has to be sewed, and we said this has to be square, is halacha l'Moshe Messinai, these sewings. It's simple to understand if I take out the ritzua, right? So you see it's sewn square, and then it's in addition to the ma'abarta. That's the tunnel. Okay. So over here you leave a place in the back like a tunnel for the ritzua to come in. Now, what's the order of the parsha? Machnes parsha achroina. Now, just to say it in advance, the order of the parshas is going to have to be such that the person coming and standing across the person wearing the tefillin, he's the one that reads the parshas kesidron, the way it's meant to be. So if we said, it says Kadesh, V'hoya ki v'yacha, Shema, and V'hoya, if that's the order, the way Rashi's tefillin is, then that has to be the order for the person standing across you. So you, on your head, you'll have it the other way around. So from your right, it's first V'hoya im Shemaya, then Shema, V'hoya ki v'yacha, and then Kadesh. The person in front of you, he's the one that reads it kesidron. So he tells you, therefore, Machnes Parsha Achroina, the final Parsha you put in is V'hoyim Shemaya B'bayis Harishin in the first one. Shual Yemin HaMiniach, which is the right side of the person wearing the tefillin. So this is my right. You put in V'hoyim Shemaya, Ushma Smuchala, V'hoya ki v'yacha, B'bayis Shlishi, and Smuchala Shema, and the Kadesh Li, B'bayis Haribi in the fourth one, Shula Smoil HaMiniach, which is the extreme left to the one that's putting it on, which is me. This is all in the way that the person standing across me, he's going to be koyra ala seder, the proper order, which is Shema Kadesh, V'hoya ki v'yacha, Shema, and V'hoyim Shemoya. If you switch this seder, it will be possible. Halacha vav. Tefilin shel yad koisvam ba'arba dapim. You write them in 4 columns, but on one strip. Ba'orechad orech sefer Torah. It's stretched like one sefer Torah, as we've shown yesterday. And it's written, I'll say that it's written on the Torah. And the truth is, if you wrote it on the Seder of Torah and you connected them, and you just even put them in, you're yoytze. You don't even really need to connect these 4 parashiyos as long as they're written. Halacha ches. As we described earlier, each one of the 4 parashas that you put into its compartment has to be wrapped with a cloth. And around this cloth, there is going to be the hair. You put them into their compartment. It has to be hair from a kosher animal, whether it's domesticated or non-domesticated. Even if they weren't shechted properly, it's still okay. It has become the widespread custom of people to tie it with the tail of calves. Halacha test. When you sew them, when you're sewing it closed, the bias, you only sew it with the gidin, the sinews of a behema or chaya tahira. Va'afil mebel streifashem, as we said, even if they died in different causes, not through shchita. Loichinas a gidin sheyesh ba'keva behema. Which sinews would they use? Very strong ones, which are in the by the bottom of the behema. They even toilet by tzeimus agidin, very strong sinews. Veim lebanim, and they're white. Vim kashim, if they're too hard, you can't mamish turn them and sew with them. So Menachem and babanim, however you do, the Rambam suggests you do it with stones, you knock them. Okay, it's machi also kapishton until they're done. They feel like flax. V'toivinois, and you spin them. V'shoizunois, and you weave them. With which you're going to sew the tefillin clothes, Sefer Torah, and connecting the different hides of the Sefer Torah. Halacha Yud. Toifer noisam beribua. They have to be sewn, as we said, Halacha l'Moshe Sinai, sewn square around the ktzitza, the top of the bayis. And Halacha Revachas, the accepted way of doing it is Yebechol Tzad Sholish Tfiras. There are three. On each side, there are three, and the way the Rambam refers to them, there's three in the place right in front of the charitz, and so he learns it. So b'meila, achi akol shteimesrei tefir. So there's 3 and 6 plus 7, 8, 9, 10, and 11 and 12. So it's 4, 8, 12. 1 second. Shubachol tzad sholosh tefir. Sorry, 3, 6, 9, 12. There's 3 on each side, and Yakol shtemesrei tefir bein shel yad, bein shel roish. V'im asa tefir eser oy arbaisrei. If you did 10, you did 14. Oy, so you're doing good. V'chol tefir yachut shalem soiviv mishtei ruchos. Each one, when it's sewn, usually when you go up and you go down, so it's going to be one on and one off. So you go back the other way. So each one has both ways, in both directions. Now, the compartments, the separations, the grooves, they have to reach all the way down ad mekoy matefer, until the place where the sewing happens. The im haya charetz nikar. Now, if the charetz is nikar, k'dei shiyu arba roshim nirun lakol. That's the way it should be. You should know that if it's nikar, if you could see that there are 4 compartments, even if the doesn't get all the way till the tefer right now, it's not separated, you can't get all the way down, it's still kosher. However, if you actually don't see the separation, you can't see, then it's possible. Al gabe ha'or chut oy. You have to pull down a string to separate between a minuk pashut. The going custom is lahaver gid migidei atfira b'chol charitz v'charitz mishloshtem. This is where I started mentioning earlier. The Rambam holds that the minuk pashut, this was in his time, that there was a while you sew it, they would put the gidin also through, so it stayed there. It wasn't just a test that there are 4 compartments. They actually stayed there, a gid running through between each compartment, continuously separating them. Halacha Yud Beis. V'cheisad oisna retzuos. How would they do the retzuos themselves? Loichin retzuos shel or. You take a strap of leather. The width has to be at least the size of a barley kernel. And if it's wider, it's even better. It's kosher. The amount that the shel roish has to have is at least this should surround the head. It means it to be able to sit on your head. And low going down, enough to make the knot. That's what surah's dal. Mikan it should drape down. Achigil a taber to the belly button, or lamata menomat alter brings the bris or bekaim, even lower over the right side more than the left side. How long does the ritzua, the strap of the shalyad, need to be? It has to surround the entire arm. It means it has the mena kesher. So you have to be able to make the kesher, obviously, the part that's surrounding the arm to tie on, and then the kesher of the bayis, and then it should be able to stretch until and according to this, the bare minimum has to be able to go tie it to the arm, make the kesher on the tefillin, and stretch at least till the middle finger. And here do 3 kriches. And this is the bare minimum. The Iksher Mena Kesher, but the Mata Ritzua Achas Al Etzbaim Tzais, be able to pull till the Etzbaim Tzais. You can manage Shols Al Etzbai, Shols Kriches, the Iksher, 3 kriches, and then tie it onto the hand. If it's longer, it's kosher. Now, Machnes or Ritzua. The Ritzua Shalroish, you put it into the tunnel that we described you leaving earlier when you have this fold. And Umakif b'midas Roisha, he sets it up on his head. And then Koisher Kesher Meruba, you tie a knot in the back, Meruba, it's square, Kimin Dalit. The Keshers that are called Talmud Chacham Lalamda, every Talmud Chacham has to know this Kesher. V'yeshal Lidiyah Tzuras B'Ksav, says the Rambam, I can't describe it in writing. It's taught from orally from student to teacher, from teacher to student. As they demonstrate, they can show it. Also, the kesher by shel yad is like a yud. I'm going to show it to you. The kesher shel yad has to be also b'tzuras yud, but it's different because you have to be able to easily. This is the tzuras yud. Now, you see this yud, and the kesher is such that within the kesher you're able to, first of all, oila b'yiredus means that the ritzua, you have to make it bigger and smaller when you're putting it onto your hand. And our minig is, I don't know if this is what the Rambam is referring to, but you should also be able to slip knot it and tie it stronger when you put on the tefillin, so it should be ukshartam. That's minig. And yeah, to be able to lengthen and shorten when he's putting it onto his hand. Now, haritzu shel tefillin. Now, if you did him in regards to the ritzus themselves, we said halach l'maishu masina, the ritzus themselves have to be black, but that's only the outside, the part facing the outside. The back of the ritzus, being that they're inside and people don't see it. If it's green, meaning blue or white, it's all kosher. Adumas, however, red, you shouldn't do. Some Mefarshim say because it looks like Yishutei Nashim. And if it turns over, people see that it's red, it's going to look weird and embarrassing. The back of the Ritzua should be the same color as the Ktsitza. Now, if I'm not mistaken, according to the Rambam, the basic Havana is that the bias itself doesn't need to be black. Allah is only the Ritzuas. And therefore, says the Rambam, the back of the Ritzu should be the same color al kapanim as the Ktsitza. So if it's darkened. It's definitely the same color as the back of the Ktsitza. Im Yerukin, if it's green or blue, and Levanim, V'noyu latfilin shu kulam shchores haKtsitza v'Ritzuas. Says Rambam, what's beautiful is, even though it's not the Allah Sinai, is that the back of the Ritzua and the bias itself should be darkened, should be black. Halacha Tezvav. The oil that we said on which they're covering over the tefillin, and that they make the Ritzuas. It's either one that you're putting on that wooden mold for the Shalroish in 4 compartments, the Shal Yad in 1 compartment. And the hide from which you're making the straps of the Ritzuas, it should be from Behemai Chayai Oif Tahirim, kosher animals and birds. Vafil Nebel's Drave, as we said, Ve'im Asam Me'or Tmeim, if you did it from a taminah animal, Oishachipa Tefillin Bezav, or he coated the tefillin with gold on top of it, and it's psulis, it's not valid. The oir haritzua, you should know that the oir of the ritzua, unlike the oir that covers the wooden mold, which turns into our bias ultimately, the oir of the ritzua has to be done lishma. The oir of the bias, be'etzem, does not require lishma. Zakter, oir ritzua tzarich ibud lishma, when it's processed lishma, aval ba'or shemechapin, boy, the one that you cover over the bias, ein tzarich ibud klal, does not need to be processed, period. Afilu asar matzah kosher. What the Rambam means matzah is even if it was done without the whole process he described earlier with hafatzim, what's done with kemach and melach, processing it, and therefore it's matzah means unprocessed hide. If you use it, there's many people at many places where it's customary they process it cover it with unprocessed hide. Now, ain't oisim at tefillin Eli Yisrael. The only one that does tefillin it has to be done by a yid, as we described. Chasiyasan kiksibasan, making the tefillin, not processing the hide. Once you're actually doing the malacha of the tefillin, that has to be done dafka by a yid, because asiyasan, making the tefillin, is kiksibasan. And we said ukshartem uksaftem, only those that are chayiv b'kshira are chayiv. They're the ones that are right. And mipnei shin, interestingly enough, that's not only processing the bayis, but also making this shin. It has to be written lishma, done by a yid. Shaisim ba'ar. Sorry. So making the bayis, why does it need lishma? Because it also includes making the shin, and the shin is like a ksiba. Lefichach. Therefore, there's a special technique. I was like my elder Zayder Rabbi Yusewitz in Bate Unger, and he used to make films. A huge Yerushalayim, and people say that even if they lost their film, it would come back to them. He made it l'chab the person. He was very derhoibne yid. He was a chassid of the Shulchan Atar, Slonim Merabah, and he was machadish a way to make this shin like a better technique. It shouldn't be chak toiches, not pressed in, and the mele you're left with the shin. Rather, that it's more like ksiva. Because it has a din of ksiva. Lefichach, and for this reason, being that we said that the bais itself requires a sort of a ksiva, and therefore it needs to be kshartem uksaftem, only someone that's chayiv b'kshira. So im chipan akusi or if the guy akusi is the one that either coated this wooden mold to be able to put in the bais, the parshas, oitfaron, or the one that sewed it was akusi, psul is puzzle. Any psul in regards to writing it, and it can't be done by al-kus. Now, halacha yudzayin. Tefilin shel roish ein oisnei shel yad. Tefilin shel roish is a higher level, and therefore you can transfer it and make it into sheyad. Sheyad oisnei shel roish. Our sheyad can upgrade and become a roish. We don't lower a kedusha from a higher one, so shel roish can't go down sheyad. Shel roish ein oisnei shel tefilin shel yad. A tefilin shel roish isn't transformed in shel yad. The ritzuis, the straps that serve the shel roish, can't serve the shel yad. But this, in regards to the straps, it's only if you actually wore them. Tefilin shel roish shel levashim olam, and it could even be this is the bite. But the pash is definitely the straps. If you never wore it yet, then ratzal achzir liyad mutar. If you want to make a shel roish back into shel yad, then you never put on the shel yad. You never put on the shel roish. You're allowed to make it. Use these straps for sheyad mutar. The kates of oisin. How do you do this? Toila la oir. Now we're talking about the bayis. So clearly the bayis can be turned into shel yad. How do you do it? You already turned this oir into 4 compartments. It's like no big deal. Put over that oir. Toila ala oir. Achas. You turn over it a piece of hide that's now going to become 1 box. You take it off and there you have it, or you press it inside and it becomes 1 because shel yad, and then you turn it into shel yad and tie it to your hand. Halacha yud ches. Tefillin shenifzko kfir shalem. What happens if this was sewn closed and then some of the seams ripped? So at what point is it invalid? We said this sewing is halacha l'maishem mesina. It's ma'akivs likuva. Zakter. Im hayu shtei tefir zu b'tzad zu. If 2 of the sewings that were near each other ripped, that invalidates. Or if 3 seams are not, even if they're not across each other, they're one here, and one here, or one here. That already is, it doesn't matter. A 3 is going to invalidate it. In which case do we say that 3 invalidates or 2 that are near each other? If they're old and therefore the sewing is not a very good one. If they're new pair of tefillin, kolzman. Shepnei tavlon kayamos, the bottom plate is kayam, it's existent, it's as strong as it was, ksheris. So I'm going to give an example. What does it mean, tavlon kayamos? So he describes. If you hold a little bit of the bottom hide, which is sewn, and it still keeps together, that's called chadashis. It doesn't become looser. You hold a little bit of the hide, which it seems ripped. The toilet by that film, you hang the film by it. It's still strongly connected and doesn't move. It doesn't become loose, and then it's as if it's new, and it's all good. The main little is by if you can hang it, it's going to get looser and open more seams. Elo nifsak, it would open up. Harei yishan is called yishanis, and then it depends if you have 2 near each other or 3 not near each other. That invalidates it. And the final halacha for today, halacha yotes. Ritzua shenifsika. A strap that has become ripped. Ein kosher noisa, you're not allowed to retie it and like you can't retie it. Bein toifer noisa, you can't sew it back together. It's a one-stop shop. It's one shot. Ela maitzia, you have to take out that ritzua. The goinza, you put it in gniza. V'ois naches you're gonna one. B'shura ritzua psulin. You can't use leftover ritzua. Now, if a person made a whole big strap, what's called leftover? You took off. If you took off part, the rest is always left over. So what does it mean? What's invalid as shura ritzua? He says if it doesn't have enough, achia arka v'rachba kashir yasser alav. If it has the width and has the length, as we described, each one of them respectively. If it has that shear, it's not called shiurin, but less than that is called shiurin, and you can't use it. When wearing tefillin, ensure that the face outward is the black part. And in Shulchan Aruch we have a whole seder of tshuva if it nishapchalei ritzua, it's not a good simon. And thank you so very much, Talmid Makidadal, for being with us, as well as the tech team led by Rabbi Levi, for an entire Chabura Kol Terikul for being with us. Agutin, agutin.